This week on Supercars Talk, the winner is Sydney, or is it? So the Supercars were supposed to be next seen at Winton. Unfortunately, Winton is in Victoria, and now Victoria is the Corona capital of Australia. It's out of control down here. As you can see also from my attire, it is freezing cold in Melbourne, and I'm filming this in a shed, so I'm wearing a big jacket. Supercars were supposed to be going to Winton. Corona's out of control, so we're going back to Sydney. Or are we? New South Wales, or depends on what media you're listening to. There has been some reports today that Victoria has shut the border to New South Wales. I think it might be that New South Wales has shut the border to Victoria. I can see why they don't want us dirty Mexicans coming and infecting their people. They already had enough trouble of that with letting all those people off the boat at the start of the Corona crisis. Anyway, Victoria's out of control with Corona, so why would we have a race down here? The logical place is to have it at Sydney Motorsport Park again. Travelling is good for all the teams, especially one team, Team Sydney. Anyway, so that makes sense from there, but this border shutdown could pose a problem, so possibly even by the time I post this video, things might have changed. The border is getting shut down though. They are going to make allowances for essential people. Possibly though, that essential people will be, say, like people who work for Brad Jones Racing, who live on the Albury-Wodonga border, which one side is in New South Wales, one side's in Victoria. So there's a lot of people who commute either way each day. They're going to allow them. There's probably a couple of other kind of border towns along the way that might be allowed to people travel between work and school and things like that. Other than that, though, I can't see Sydney happening at the moment. Would take a bit, and I dare to think, Tickford Racing at least is very close to the epicentre. I know I have quite a few customers in that area, and it has been suggested to me to not go out that way at the moment. Hopefully for me, Erebus is safe. I work very close to them, and Walkinshaw and Kelly's aren't far away from me either. So they're on the good side of town, if there is a good side of town in Victoria at the moment. That's enough probably covering that off, because it's still a bit up in the air what is going to happen. Well, if the event does happen, it is going to be a day-night event. Most of the lighting is in. They will be filling a few gaps with some temporary lighting. The Saturday race will be a twilight race, starting late afternoon and running into sunset. They'll have the lights on at the end. Very, very similar format to the previous one. Sunday, just normal kind of day racing. We will see that top 15 shootout. Yeah, I know. We could have... go back to a top 10 shootout or whole field shootout. It's simple. No other qualifying. Just have a whole field shootout. Everybody gets their one lap day in the sun. That's it. We might actually see some of those Techno Team Sydney cars on the telecast if they do that. So anyway, the format stays largely the same. The tyre allocation was going to be different for Winton, so that tyre allocation covers over to this round. That means the previous one, they had 5 sets of soft tyres, which... if you need 2 sets of tyres per race and there's 3 races, that means you need 6 sets. That's where the jumbling kind of happened. This time, 5 sets of tyres, but 3 will be hard and 2 will be soft. There was nothing mentioned where if you had started the race on softs, you couldn't bolt on softs. The only thing that was mentioned was that you can't mix and match softs and hards. So you can't, say, put softs on the front, hards on the back, or something like that. So there's nothing to say that someone might do a Percat, and probably more a Holdsworth. But anyway, because Percat won, so everyone's saying, oh, it's not fair because of the tyre thing. Well, how about, Percat's a pretty good driver. So there's nothing to say that you can't, say, run one set of hards in race one. Obviously, you've got to pit and put on 2 tyres or whatever, but, run a hard and swap 2 hards in race 1, run both your sets of softs in race 2 and just blaze it, and then, say, race 3, run, the other set of hards and the 2 that you didn't run from race 1, if that makes sense. I could put up a diagram, but then, I'd have to actually put these thoughts onto the screen and draw it and stuff. And also, that would show up my great drawing skills and things like that. Anyway, so that's the big change, is the tyre situation. And the other big change will be there'll be a bit of a separation in the pits. So as the Queensland teams are kind of up the front of the pit lane anyway, so you've still got your Triple Eight and your Penske. Matt Stone Racing will, move up there with the big boys. You'll have your New South Wales guys as a border. So Techno Team Sydney and the Brad Jones boys are probably because Techno Team Sydney's just come from Queensland, they'd probably be first, and then the Brad Jones boys, they're kind of Victorian anyway, so they'd be next. I don't actually know on that. I'm just having a bit of a joke there. And then you'd have your championship order, I imagine. So, your Tickford, Erebus, Walkinshaw, down the back end of the grid. Kelly's last. Does it make that much of a difference? Not really. It does a little bit, but the key thing, I suppose, is it doesn't affect the top 2 teams. They still stay there. So there's, no question of favouritism. Those guys are not affected. So no one can say that Roland Dayton's made this rule to advantage Triple Eight. Couple of other points. There was talk that maybe they were going to use the short circuit. This was last seen in 1996. Believe it or not, back in 1996, the championship opened at Sydney Motorsport Park, then known as Eastern Creek, and they had some night racing there. Didn't need a big lot of permanent lights or anything back then, but anyway, those were the days. So anyway, because of the lighting situation, they ran the short circuit. I thought it might be a bit of fun to run the short circuit as something different, because we were only racing there the other weekend. So, it's kind of like we're going to different tracks. No, they're just going to run the same track. There is also that Dicky crap extension that they did a couple of years ago, and they decided we built that, it cost money, but we're never going to use that. So, no idea why money was spent on that. Anyway, they're saying we're not using the short circuit because it eliminates 3 passing opportunities. Well, okay, we do like passing, I'd have to admit, but sometimes it's a bit fun seeing a different circuit. So, weigh them up. And the other thing is, try it. See if it works. If it doesn't, well, we're going to go back there at the end of the year, so we'll run on the full circuit at the end of the year. Fine. You've tried it. Now, people like me have in their minds, why didn't we try the short circuit? Well, it's like, why don't we try some reverse grid races or something? Because people are too scared to change some of these things. So anyway, they're aiming for 10,000 spectators. Not sure how that's going to work on the social distancing things. And as far as I know, don't think you've ever got 10,000 spectators at Eastern Creek. So people could get excited, though, because of the whole COVID thing, and, we haven't been allowed to do anything forever. Well, it feels like forever, and now it looks like Victoria is going to not be allowed to do anything forever for even longer. We're going back into the dark, dark ages of the lockdown. Some other interesting news this week. Matti Tecco Nielsen has been given the ass from Walkinshaw Andretti United. He was the co-team principal, whatever the fuck that meant. He was sharing the role with Bruce Stewart. They've been doing that for a couple of years. Yeah, it's weird because as far as anyone knows, kind of, Ryan Walkinshaw's running the team, and, Adam DeBore came, and these guys, you never saw them. You see Barry Ryan, and you see guys like Roland Dane and that around all the time, and I don't know. Anyway, I didn't understand the decision when it was made to have two team principals. Still don't understand it, and now they've only got one. So obviously there was talk about streamlining the business and financing and stuff like that. Essentially, it's probably just come down to paying two people to do one person's job. Pretty simple. One had to go. Don't know why the decision was made. Probably trying to get rid of some of the guys from the old days that, might still be, when we used to win back in the day, we used to do it this way. Get rid of experience, good idea. Time will tell. I did hear it was a bit of a clash with Adam DeBore coming in. Whether that's true or not is a different thing as well. So, anyway, he's not there. It'll be interesting to see where he pops up in the future. For something a little different, I've been getting quite a few comments through recently, and I do try and respond to all of the comments. Most of them are pretty good. I've only had one real negative one. That was quite a lot of fun. Anyway, thought it might be fun to do a bit of a reply on here, because sometimes, I reply days later and might get missed by people. So the first one, Raff and Moyle, I wonder if you think Nick Percat is any good. Well, I think I might have mentioned it once in this video. It's not that Nick Percat's my favourite driver or anything. There's quite a few other drivers that I like well and truly above Mr. Percat. I think he is greatly underrated. He has a really bad reputation for some reason. I'm not 100% sure why. Yes, he did come in as a very cocky young fella, but also I think my ego would be through the fucking roof if I'd won Bathurst on my first attempt. So I think over the last couple of years he has really matured. I think he's probably the most underrated driver in the category, and I think there's a lot of talk about, guys like Anton De Pasquale and Andre Heimgartner, that, they should be the ones who are promoted to these big seats. I think Percat should be given a shot, and, I've mentioned it once or twice that if I was running Team Penske, I'd be shuffling one of the two drivers, and Percat would be on the top of my list as the replacement. Spencer reckons the 2022 lineup at Penske should be Anton and Nick Percat. Not a bad one there. And Beth Tender reckons that we should have Dean Canto there as the Enduro co-driver. Don't quite agree with you there on the Dean Canto thing, Beth. Spencer, I think that that could be a pretty good lineup there at Penske 2022. As I said, I can't see Scotty McLaughlin going anywhere for next year. And I think possibly if it was me, I'd be shuffling someone across. So at least, you have someone in there who learns off Scotty for a year, learns the ropes and that, while you've still got Scotty there, so that you can kind of hit the ground running in 2022 when he goes to IndyCar. William Keeley asked me about my opinion on Whincup, and that, he's basically won everything, and I'd never refer to him as being the GOAT. I remember, I understand that term now. For those who don't know, I have to admit I did look it up after I heard it a few times. It stands as greatest of all time. Now, my issue with Whincup is that everything he's ever done in the category has been at the best team with, the best car, best engineer, best co-drivers, etc., etc. He went out and they had the three-peat at Bathurst. He had Lowndes as his co-driver at Bathurst. Lowndes is the best co-driver anyone could ever have at Bathurst, essentially, except now Garth Tander. He's, essentially always had the pick of the engineer at Triple Eight. There was even a point when Couchy came in learning the ropes and they struggled a little bit, and Duddo actually stepped back and was fully engineering with Couchy. And Lowndes just, to me, Lowndes got shuffled a bit to the side with things like that. To me, you've got, guys like Shane Van Gisbergen started off with Team Kiwi, Stone Brothers at Techno, and you could see the talent shining through there. Scott McLaughlin at GRM, to GRM's was nowhere essentially and been nowhere since, and Scott McLaughlin in that little bit there. Granted, they had the Volvo, but he did win in the Commodore as well in his first season. That brilliance shined through in cars that weren't at the top. And even when you go back years and years and years ago, like Scafie was in at Gibson Motorsport, but then Gibson trailed off and Scaife was still doing amazing things in that car. There's always been that, the guys have worked their way up, or maybe they've made a wrong career choice and gone to the Russell Ingall at LDM. Nick Percat won a race at LDM. He got on the podium at Bathurst with LDM. I laugh because, I can use Nick Percat for all these examples of brilliance. So that's kind of, at the moment, why I wouldn't put Whincup on the, he's extremely good or whatever, but I would have liked to have seen him prove himself more. He was essentially hired at Triple Eight to be a reliable co-driver to Craig Lowndes. Granted, he's exceeded that exceptionally, but I do wonder, around that time you had guys like, James Courtney, Will Davison, they possibly could have picked them instead of Jamie, and then you wonder whether they would have, they could be whatever 15-time champion or whatever that Jamie is now. That's my thing. Whereas Coulthard's not a bad driver. He's getting pummeled by Scott McLaughlin at the moment. So that's the thing. Generally at Triple Eight, Craig Lowndes was finishing second or third in the championship. Shane Van Gisbergen's won a championship as his teammate. They're pretty kind of level pegging. It's not like, he's leaps and leaps and bounds ahead. So that's all I've got for this week. Keep the comments coming. If you want to email me, supercarstalk@gmail.com. Be interesting to see what happens with, all this COVID stuff over the next couple of weeks, whether we become essential and actually make it to Sydney or not. It's a bit of a moving target at the moment. So until next time, I'll see you later.